حي على الفلاح.
In 2008, the government of Kosovo was officially declared the Republic of Kosovo an independent state. Islam is the dominant religion in this youngest country of Europe, with around 1.9 million inhabitants. Over 90% of the Albanians in Kosovo call themselves Muslim. Although Kosovar Albanians adhere to a nominal form of Islam, they consider it an integral part of their identity. An expression which can be heard regularly in Kosovo is, "I am Kosovar Albanian, and therefore a Muslim." During medieval times, Kosovo was the center of the Serbian Empire. That is, until the 14th century Battle of Kosovo, when the Ottomans defeated the Serbs and their allies, paving the path for the Turks to establish a rule over the region, which would last from the mid-15th century to the early 20th century. Prior to Turkish rule, the Kosovo population was predominantly Serb, but with the arrival of the Ottomans, Islam became more widespread, and the number of Muslim ethnic Albanians rose significantly. Kosovo is a forgotten Islamic land populated by nearly 2 million Albanian Muslims. It is located in the heart of the Balkan, which had witnessed the tragedy of Bosnia-Herzegovina to be followed by the tragedy of the Kosovo Muslims. Kosovo land was inhabited by man in the prehistoric age, where the ancient sources mention that Illyria tribe were the first group which lived in that land and founded the state of Darina. Later, the region came under the Roman and then the Byzantine rule until the advent of Islam. The historic fact refutes the Serbs' claim that they are the indigenous population of the land. Serbs immigrated to the region along with those groups who immigrated in successive waves from the eastern regions of Ural Mountains intending for Southeast Europe lands and dispersed there under different names: Serbs, Croats, Macedonians, Buglers, and Slovenians. The collective immigration of these groups led to conflicts between the immigrants and the tribes as well as the existing inhabitants from one side, and the Byzantine Magyars, Hungarians, who enforced their control on the region from the other side. Eventually, the balance tipped in the favor of the Serbs. However, the Serbs' power did not last for a long time, as it came into direct clash with the Ottoman power. Given how tightly the Serbs have historically been clinging to the Battle of Kosovo, which was fought on June 28, 1389, on the Kosovo plain in the southern Serbia against the fledgling Ottoman Empire, it's somewhat surprising what actually happened there. There can be no doubt that it is regarded as an important and indeed iconic battle in European history. But at first glance, it is difficult to see why. Though neither side fielded more than 40,000 men, it was a bloody battle that all but spelled the end of the Serbian nation. The Ottoman Sultan Murad I arrived, backed up by a neighboring Beylik from Anatolia, and together they faced the Serbian Prince Lazar, together with allies from Kosovo and Bosnia. Some sources claim that it is also likely that the Knight Hospitaller from Croatia fought on the Serbian side, and anachronistic records state that the Serbian army was larger than Murad's. Murad had both his sons with him, Bayezid and Yaqub, commanding one wing each. Initially, it looked like the Serbs would prevail, and the Ottoman forces conceded heavy losses during the first hour. However, in a frenzy of bloodthirst and revenge, Bayezid led his wing in a counterattack towards the Knights, whose heavy armor became a hindrance for their retreat. Bayezid took out a great number of the Serbian soldiers, and Prince Lazar's ally, Vuk Brankovic from Kosovo, fled the field trying to rescue as many men as possible. At this point, Prince Lazar had probably been captured or slayed in the heat of the battle. Sometime after Brankovic's retreat from the battle, the remaining Bosnian and Serb forces yielded the field, believing that a victory was no longer possible. In one of the earliest accounts of the battle, it is described that 12 Serbian knights, known in Serbian epic poetry as Jugovic brothers, successfully breached the Ottoman defense. One of the knights, later identified as Milos Obelik, pretended to have deserted the Ottoman forces. When brought before Murad, Obelik pulled out a hidden dagger and slayed the Sultan by slashing him. He was then taken out by the Sultan's bodyguards. The battle marked the only time in history an Ottoman Sultan was slain in battle. Thus, the Ottomans got rid of the Serbs' rule, and collectively the Albanians embraced the Islamic religion to become soldiers under the Turks in that region. After the Battle of Kosovo, in which the Muslims triumphed over the Serbs, Bayezid, who succeeded his father as the ruler of the Muslims, appointed Prince Stefan bin Lazar, a governor of Serbia, and empowered him to govern his homeland under their own laws. However, Islam began to spread among the population in general, and the Albanians in particular, until it became firmly established in the region. Toleration of Islam, closely adhered to by the Ottoman sultans during their conquests in Europe, was a powerful factor in the spread of Islam among the Albanians, who were exhausted by the religious conflicts among different Christian sects, factionalism of foreign powers towards their sect, their persistence to impose the Christian religion by force on the other communities, oppressing those adhered to their faith, in addition to the tyranny of local princes in the rule and enslaving members of the people. The people found Muslim Ottoman rule a savior and supporter to them in their life. Hence they entered and wound around such rule voluntarily. Until the 16th century, the degree of Islamization in Kosovo was minimal and largely confined to urban centers. The pace of conversions to Islam only increased significantly in the second half of the 16th century, possibly because high taxes. Prior to the Ottomans, both Catholic and Orthodox churches had waged a ruthless war over the hearts, minds, and souls of the Albanians, and this situation was exploited by the Ottomans. Both the Serbian Orthodox Church and the Sultan viewed the conversion of Albanians to Islam as something positive, as it weakened Balkan Catholic nucleus, and the Sultan received new subjects. Converts also became exempt from the sizje, a protective tax levied only on non-Muslim males. But that was certainly not the only cause of the people turning to Islam. The tax burden tended to go up as Ottoman power relative to foreign Christian powers came under challenge. So far as Catholic Albanians were concerned, the Catholic Church was less powerful and privileged within the Ottoman Empire than the Serbian Orthodox Church, and less well-staffed. The Bektashi order of dervishes carried out a conversion campaign which stressed the similarities between their version of Islam and Christianity. At any rate, by 1750, most Christian families had converted to Islam. When the entity of the Ottoman state started weakening and wearing out, deviation from the right divine of Allah began to increase gradually. The state lagged behind scientifically, administratively, and militarily. As a result, the secessionist movement and the internal revolts ignited by the malicious crusades became active. The Muslim soldier lost his discipline, Jewish and Christian organizations and parties emerged, and the Ottoman state eventually got to the point of weakness and disunion. The Balkan War began and the Turkish withdrew from the southeast of Europe, and finally Albania, including Kosovo, separated from the Ottoman state. When Albania separated from the Ottoman state, including Kosovo, the Serbs began implementing their plan to fight Islam and the Muslims. The Serbs' forces began exerting various types of pressure upon the Muslims of Kosovo. Arrest, assassination, expulsion, denial of education and employment, and other practices were employed against Muslims of Kosovo. In 1912, the Serbs slayed or banished those Albanians who resisted them. In 1915, as the Serbian army retreated across Kosovo, chased out by the Austro-Hungarians and Germans, the Albanians took their revenge. In 1918, when they returned, the Serbs took theirs. Meanwhile, in the same year, Yugoslavia was created, made up of Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Serbia, then including Macedonia. Kosovo had no independent existence. During the 1920s, the Serbs, or the new Yugoslav authorities, suppressed Albanian rebellions and tried to implant Serbian settlers. In 1941, when most of Kosovo became part of an Italian-ruled Greater Albania, the settlers were driven out and thousands of Serbs were slain. Kosovo's subsequent declaration of independence in 2008. The result of a UN-mediated process by Marti Ahtisaari and subject to strong guarantees on ethnic minority protections, was the logical conclusion of the idea that Serbia's history of rule in Kosovo had left it with no moral or legal right to the territory. Albanians would say that it never had any in the first place. More than 100 countries, mostly Western ones, share this view when they recognized Kosovo's independence, but not Serbia, and perhaps more importantly, not Russia, which has since prevented Kosovo from joining the UN. Nowadays, Islam is deeply entrenched in identity. In many cases, there is a tangible link between adherence to Islam, belonging to an ethnic community, and faith in a national cause. The explanation for this phenomenon lies in the conflicts of the 90s and, in a broader sense, in the process involving the disintegration of Yugoslavia, the breakup of the federal states, and the birth of many small homelands, 7 to be precise, as well as the ethnic theories used to justify the wars, have given the Muslim communities greater visibility. These factors also have transformed Muslims' role, sanctioning the change from a religious minority to the representatives of a nation or of a nation-state.